Good morning, students. Welcome back. So today we are starting with a new accounting standard. Okay, I'll just share the document. Intangible assets, AS26. Okay, so now as regards this intangible assets, you can say an important accounting standard and also very relevant, because if you look at any entity, somewhere or other you will find the application of this accounting standard. For example, you can say software. Okay, now these days almost every entity is on technology. Okay, they are making some use of technology, so that's where this intangible assets also comes into the picture, right? Now let's first of all discuss about the definition of this intangible asset. Now what an intangible asset is, because on the basis of this assessment we will be able to decide whether the asset will become intangible asset or not, and accordingly we'll have to get into the accounting requirements also. Okay, now what is an intangible asset? Can you give me some examples of intangible assets? Over to you. Before we get on to the definition, some examples which come to your mind which you think could be intangible assets. Great. Hemin says goodwill, patent, trademark. Tanmay says patent. Yes. Akila is saying goodwill. What about others? Okay. Then Lakshmi says copyright. Yes, that's correct. What about others? Neha says trademark could be there. Right. Pooja is saying goodwill. Yes, that's correct. Absolutely correct. Any other example? Akila says know-how. Yes, that's also an example of the intangible asset. Okay, so now I think good enough. Now, what is an intangible asset? See, intangible asset means which is not tangible, which means which is without physical substance. Okay, means something you can't touch. And that's also one of the criterias for assessment of whether an asset is an intangible asset or not. Now, what are the other parts to it? So we can say intangible asset is an identifiable non-monetary asset without physical substance, held for use in the production or supply of goods or services, for rental to others, or for administrative purposes. Now, in this case, if you look at this criteria, I think this fourth part is about the business usage. Yes or no? Because when you'll use that in the business, so either you will use it for production or the supply, or maybe you will want to give it to someone on rent, or you may be using it for administrative purposes. Correct? Now, there are a couple of criteria here for this asset to qualify as intangible asset. One is identifiable, second is a non-monetary asset. Now, this term monetary or non-monetary is not new. I'm sure you would have covered this earlier as well, but let's try to understand what is a monetary asset. And then we'll come back to this definition of intangible asset. Now, what is a monetary asset? We can say monetary assets are those assets in respect of which the receivable that we have. Okay, when you talk about an asset, so you'll have a receivable. The receivable in such cases is fixed or determinable in terms of amounts of money. So can you think of some examples which will meet the criteria of a monetary asset? Yes, anyone? Very good. Nikunj says debtors. Akhila says machinery. So let's think about machinery. So can we say in relation to machinery, we have a receivable which is fixed or determinable? Answer is no. See, when you talk about a debtor, okay, so you are talking about a receivable which is fixed. But when it comes to machinery, it's not fixed. Yes or no? Right? So therefore, if you look at some of the assets like PPE, inventory, what do they become? They become non-monetary in nature. Right? When you talk about trade receivable, so trade receivable will of course be a monetary asset. Okay. Now, coming back to the definition of intangible asset. Now, let's take an example, say software. Okay. Now, software, can we say is without physical substance? Answer is yes. Will it be used for business purposes? Answer is yes. And in case of software, can we say it is without physical substance? Answer is again yes. Right? Sorry. Can we say it's non-monetary in nature? Answer is yes. Why? Because if you talk about software, so you don't know what's the amount which is receivable, and in respect of saying that it's something which is determinable, okay, or which is fixed. No, you can't say that. Yes or no? Right? So that's why, what do you call this software as? Non-monetary. Understood? Right? So that's why you will call the software as non-monetary. Great. So I also have this example from Kambira Kajanan. He says that licenses, copyrights. Yes, of course. These are also the examples. Now let's talk about this term identifiable. So when we say intangible asset is identifiable, what do we mean by that? Okay. What is this identifiability? Now this is an important aspect around it. Now what do you mean by identifiable? Identifiable means in terms of its separability. Okay. So the entity could sell it, exchange it, rent it out, distribute. That's what you call as identifiability. Right? So therefore, this separability is the term that you assess to determine whether it is identifiable in nature or not, or which is arising through a contract. Now, moving on to another part, control. See, for an intangible asset, another aspect which becomes important is control. Now, what do you mean by control? See, it's very important that if an entity wants to recognize an asset as intangible asset, So that entity should have control over that particular intangible asset. And let's try to understand this with the help of an example. Okay. So say there's a software, right? And there are two entities, A limited, B limited. A limited is using the software. B limited is also using the software. Okay. Now, in this case, we are trying to check whether A limited has control over this software or not. Means we are looking at it from the perspective of A limited. Understood? Right? So we are looking at it from the perspective of A limited. Means whether A limited has control over the software or not. For this, what do we need? We need to determine whether A limited is able to generate economic benefits from the software. The answer is yes. But the same thing can be said for B limited also, isn't it? You can say the same thing for B limited. B limited is also able to generate the economic benefits from software. So how is that different for A limited? So does it mean that if an entity is able to generate the economic benefits, so that gives the entity control over that particular intangible asset? See, that's one part to the control. For the control, what is important? Two conditions. The entity should not only be getting the economic benefits from that particular asset, but the entity should also be in a position to restrict any other party from getting the economic benefits from such intangible asset. That's when you will say control exists. So in this case, if let's suppose A will have the power to restrict B from using the software, okay, that's when you will say A has control. Otherwise not. Otherwise, you will not say control exists. Understood? Otherwise, you will not be able to say that the control exists. Right? And for an intangible asset, control is again required to be in place. Understood? Yeah. So there are few parts of the intangible assets we have discussed. One, it has to be identifiable, non-monetary, without physical substance. And of course, control is also required to be in place. Once you have all of these criteria fulfilled, that's when you will say that the asset is an intangible asset. Now, with the intangible asset, there is one more point. So what is that? See, when you talk about intangible asset, okay, in this case, the matter of discussion is what? Asset to begin with. Yes or no? Because only and only when you have an asset, you will try to assess whether that asset is intangible or not. Yeah, correct. Yeah. Yes or no? So that's why if you come across any transaction or anything which is not an asset, do you need to check whether it will become intangible asset or not? Answer is no. Okay. So every time, whenever you get into this assessment, please remember what is your starting point? How do you start on that? You'll have to first of all check whether it's an asset or not. If it's an asset, then you will have to check whether it is intangible or not. Right? So you can say it's a two-step process. One, to check whether it's an asset. Once you say yes, it's an asset, then to check whether this asset is intangible in nature or not. That's how you need to go about it. So that's why, that's how you can say the confusion will also not arise. Clear on this, everyone? Right? Any questions, any doubts if you have? Yes, I understand Akila has a query. Akira, can you please pick up, explain your query? Yes, Akila, if you can just unmute yourself.
Good
And
morning, sir.
good morning.
Sir, you said that intangible assets are non-monetary value,
Yes,
but when we sell, there is some amount or monetary worth of that intangible asset, right, sir?
right.
Then it become a monetary value only.
See, but you're saying when you will sell it, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Whenever you are having an intangible asset, let's suppose to begin with, will you acquire or will you generate an intangible asset with a purpose to sell it?
No, sir.
No. So that's why you don't know. So do you have any fixed value that you will be able to realize from that intangible asset? Answer is
No.
no. Okay. So that's why you will not call it as monetary. Let me just extend this example of yours. I think for intangible asset becomes easy for me to say it's non-monetary. Let's talk about inventory. Will you say inventory is monetary or non-monetary asset?
Non-monetary.
Why non-monetary?
Because it changes, sir.
Yes, because when you talk about the realizability, can we say that's fixed or determinable? Again, no. But when you talk about debtor, that's fixed.
Yes, sir.
Yes or no? Yeah. So that's the difference,
Okay,
right?
sir.
Good. Then I
Thank you, sir.
understand Mathli has a query. Sure. Yes, Mathli. What's your query? Mathli, if you can just explain your query.
So software is an intangible asset, sir, or
Mathli, if you can just explain your query.
yes, a software you mentioned in this example. So software is an intangible asset, or
See, that's what you'll have to determine every time. So there is no standardized answer for any asset. There are few criterias of intangible assets we have discussed. So if you go to the definition, all of these points we discussed, you can say those are nothing but the criterias. So every time you have an asset, you will have to check whether all those criterias are fulfilled. If you will say yes, then it will become intangible asset. Understood? So every time you can't say that because the nature of this asset is software or the nature of asset is patent, so that's why it will become an intangible asset. Not necessarily. You'll have to find out. Okay?
yes, sir. Then how will be inventory is a non-monetary asset, sir?
Okay. Now tell me what is monetary and non-monetary? What is your understanding of monetary and non-monetary?
Monetary means there is any purchase or any sales
So
or
where do you
any
get this understanding from? Are you listening to the discussion that we have had so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what is the understanding of monetary asset which I explained and the non-monetary asset which I explained, not what you have understood? What is it that I explained? So did I say that if you go sell and purchase, it becomes monetary? So did we discuss any such thing?
No, sir. Monetary asset means uh,
Yes. See, monetary means wherein in terms of the realizability, the amount is fixed or determinable. That's the
okay,
criteria.
sir.
Okay. Now, when you talk about, say, for example, debtors, you know the amount which you are going to receive. But when it comes to inventory, do you know the amount? No. You'll know the amount when you convert this inventory to receivable, isn't
Yes,
it?
sir.
That's
Yes, sir.
why inventory will be non-monetary in nature.
Okay, sir.
Understood?
Yes, sir.
Sure. Yes. Anyone else? Any more questions so far? Any questions? Any doubts? No? All right. So then I think we can look at one small example. Let's look at this. Moon Limited has provided training to its staff on various topics like GST, accounting standards to ensure the compliance as per the required law. Okay. Now the question arises that the training cost. Okay, let's suppose the company has incurred a cost of rupees, say 5 lakhs. Now, can that cost, which is incurred on the training of the staff, be an intangible asset? Now, in this case, if let's suppose the staff will get trained, so they will get a know-how. Yes or no? Yeah. So let's suppose you are attending this session right now. Let's suppose you happen to be the staff of the company. So once you understand the accounting standard, what will happen? So there's a know-how, right? Which you have got to understand. Now, from the company's perspective, if you look at it, the question arises: will this cost, or is this amount spent on the training meeting the criteria of an intangible asset or not? Because if that is not meeting the criteria of intangible asset, what do? You'll take it to P&L. Yes or no? But if you'll say no, it meets the criteria of intangible asset, then of course you will capitalize it, right? So in this case, what do you think? What do you think? What about this staff training, this know-how through the training? What do you consider? Should that be an intangible asset or not? Over to you quickly. Just think about it. Just go back to the definition we discussed, apply those criterias, and then try to answer this. What do you think? Okay, great. So I can see this answer from Akila. She's saying yes, it's intangible. Can you give me the reason also? So when you say yes or no, tell me the reason also. Then Lakshmi says yes. So why yes? And what about others? Quickly, everyone. What do you think? Should this be an intangible asset or not? So why yes? When you say yes, why yes? Then Lakshmi says because it's used for administrative purposes. What is used? So when you say it's used, what are you using for administrative purposes? Yes, tell me quickly. If you want to speak, you can speak up. Okay, so then Lakshmi says knowledge of the training will be used for administrative purposes. Okay, fine. So you mean to say know-how will be capitalized, correct? It's a know-how, and that's why it will meet the criteria of intangible asset. Is it? Okay, very good. Akila says because the training gives the economic benefit to the company. Pooja says no, it's not an intangible asset. So Pooja, can you explain why no? See, either it's yes or no, but whatever is your answer, you can just give me the reason also. If you want to speak and explain, you can do that, right? Whichever way you feel comfortable. Neha says yes, it's an addition to the overall development of the organization. Okay, so anything which is said in addition to the overall development of the organization, you will call it as an intangible asset. Where do you get this criteria from? Did we discuss any such thing? Yeah, so every time when you try to get onto the reason, I think what should you do? You should go back to the part that we have covered. Try not to add something on your own, isn't it? Yeah. Mathli is saying control is not a single control. Employees can resign. Control is not a single control. What do you mean by single control? What do you mean by single control? So what is the single control, double control? Anil says yes, it's an intangible asset because it has fulfilled all the conditions. No, which all conditions? You can just explain that. Then Lakshmi says it is not because the entity doesn't have control. Now let's think about it. See, now we are talking about know-how, correct? Now, in respect of this know-how, it's a skill set, isn't it? It's a skill set which the employees have developed through the training. So the question arises that whether this skill set meets the criteria of intangible asset. Okay, so before we get on to some other criteria, there is one criteria which we discussed called as control. In this case, what do we need? We need that the entity Moon Limited should have control over this know-how. If the control is there, then it's fine, but the control needs to be established. Now, for the control, you can say that entity will be getting the economic benefits. I think Pooja, you want to explain? Yes, please go ahead. Pooja, you raised hand.
So how you said lack of control, that one, and other one is restrict the access of ability to restrict the access of others. Means they
Right.
can go to other company and use their skills with competitive companies.
No, so what do you mean by that?
So it is not an intangible asset, sir.
It is not an intangible asset. Okay, very good. So now in this case, what was the understanding of control that we discussed? See, the control means two things. Entity should be able to generate economic benefits, plus entity should be in a position to restrict others from getting any economic benefit. Yes or no? In this case, when you talk about know-how, let's suppose there are 50 employees or 30 employees who have been trained. Now, in respect of these employees, because they are now trained, they are equipped with a better skill set. So will the entity be getting the economic benefits through this training? Answer is yes. No doubt about it. But the problem is, can the entity restrict these employees from leaving the organization? Answer is no. Tomorrow, if let's suppose they resign, what will happen? The skill set also goes away, right? The skill set also goes away because it's attached to the employees. So that's why, what will you see? You will see control is missing. And if the control is missing, can it become an intangible asset? Answer is no. Right? Clear on this? Yeah? Everyone clear?
Yes. Sir, a clarification, sir. Suppose
Yes.
if the company
Hmm.
puts an agreement between
Hmm.
the employee and the organization that
Right.
they should work for a certain number of years.
Right.
That is compulsory.
Hmm.
Then it has a control now, sir. That time what happens, sir?
Yes. Then in such a case, for the period of the contract, let's suppose for the next 3 years, if the employees cannot leave, many a times companies do attach this criteria. Okay, so they say that this is the training we have provided. So if let's suppose you want to leave, either you compensate the company for the amount which the company has invested on you in terms of the training. Otherwise, you'll have to stay with the company for say next 2 years, 3 years. So for that period, you will say yes, the control is there.
That time it becomes an intangible asset, sir. Can we say?
So that time you can say the control criteria will be established. As of now, we are only evaluating the control criteria. Okay. Of course, you'll have to then look into other criteria as well. Understood my point? Yeah.
Okay, sir.
So the control criteria which you are saying has failed, that will not fail. So that is
Suppose
established.
in that example, if they had given that there was an agreement between them that they should not live it for another 2 years, they should remain in the company. In such a case, control is there, because of which we can conclude saying it is an intangible asset. Sir.
That's what I'm telling you. For the period of 2 years, you will say yes, the control exists.
Okay.
Okay. And because in the given example, you don't know about various other criteria, so you'll have to assess that.
Okay.
So you can just quickly assess that. Now the question arises, is it non-monetary? Yes. The next question is it without physical substance? Yes. Will it be using, so of course, if it's there in the organization, it will be used for business purposes. Is it identifiable? Answer is yes. So it meets all the criteria. Okay, so every time when you answer the question that it's an intangible asset or not, you'll have to look at all the criteria, not the control. Okay, because control is one of that.
Okay.
So if the question is asking you about control assessment, then of course you'll talk about control assessment. If the question is asking about intangible asset, then you'll have to look at all and
Okay.
accordingly decide. You can't say that control is there, so it's an intangible asset. No. You can't say its physical substance is missing, so that's why an intangible asset. No, that's wrong. Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
that's why you
Thank
have
you.
this definition which covers all the aspects, and that's something you will also have to look into.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Clear?
Yes, sir.
Sure. Anyone else? Any more questions on this? No questions? Sure. Everyone clear? Yeah, everyone clear? All right. So let's move further. Now, in this case, when you talk about intangible assets, okay, so now in respect of intangible assets, there's one more part to the intangible asset. And what is that? See, because we talk about intangible assets as the one which is without physical substance. So sometimes there may be a situation that there is something tangible which could be attached to the intangible portion. So let's try to understand that. Okay, so let's take an example for this. Let's suppose there is a hard disk. Okay. Now you have a software in the hard disk. Now, if you talk about hard disk, is it tangible or intangible in nature? Tell me. I'm talking about only the hard disk. Is it tangible or intangible in nature? Tell me. Quickly, huh? If you talk about hard disk, will you be calling it as tangible or intangible? Akla says tangible. Virashri says tangible. Yeah. But if you look at software, we discussed that software will be intangible. Correct? Now, what if these two are attached? So let's suppose you acquire a hard disk or you acquire a software. So the software is there in the hard disk or the hard disk has the software. So you don't separate that. So the question arises that in this case, when you have this hard disk with the software in place, right? So will you call this as an intangible asset or a tangible asset? Why? Because if you call it as tangible asset, which standard you will apply? AS10. If you call it as intangible asset, then which standard you will apply? AS26. Yes or no? Yeah. So there's a confusion on this. So any thoughts? What do you do in this situation? So if let's suppose you have any such sort of situation, what do you do? Tell me, what do you do in this case? Anil says PP for hard disk. So in a way, Anil is saying that we will break it into two parts. Is it? Okay. For the accounting purposes, of course. Anyone else? What do you do in this case? How do you account for this particular asset. Akila says AS10 will apply, means we'll record it as tangible completely. Yeah, so we'll ignore the intangible portion, is it? What about others? Then Lakshmi says, because I purchased the hard disk for software, means my intent was to get the software, means that's what I wanted. So that's why I'll call it as intangible asset. Okay, another thought. Now in this case, let's try to understand what do you do. See, there are two assets actually that we are talking about in the given situation. Yes or no? So now we are talking about two assets. Correct? So in this case, what should you do? In this case, you should be recording them separately. You should record this tangible portion as PPE, intangible portion as intangible asset. Okay. So what is the accounting requirement that you should follow? Break it into two parts. Separate it out. Right? But if let's suppose the value of any of these components is negligible. Let's suppose the overall value when you acquire this hard disk, let's suppose the overall value is 5 lakhs. Wherein the value of hard disk, let's suppose, is rupees 1000. But the overall value becomes 5 lakhs. Why? Because the value of software is significant. So in this case, because the value of this tangible portion is negligible, so that's why what do? You will ignore the tangible part. Okay. So if let's suppose any of the component in terms of their value is negligible, then what do? You will ignore that component. And you will record this entire asset as intangible or tangible. Means whatever is the dominant part, whatever holds the significant value. So that will become the basis for recognition. But if let's suppose both of them have got decent values, then what should you do? You should separate it for the purposes of accounting requirement and record them separately. Clear on this? Everyone clear? Right? Everyone clear? Any questions? Then Lakshmi is clear. Anyone else? Any questions on this? Any doubts? No? Sure? Great. All right. So now let's move further. Anil is asking if the value is negligible, then we will simply ignore it. So whenever auditor questions, we will be reported right. So what do you mean by we will be reported? I couldn't understand your query. Can you please maybe explain this, Anil? If it's better if you can just speak up, explain your query. Yes, Anil.
Sir, I mean about negligible part if auditor questions uh, like why the why we have ignored it.
See, so please go ahead. Please complete it.
Sir, I mean, during the audit, like if auditor questions about that negligible part of asset, like will not be able to answer, right? Like,
Why will you not be able
why
to answer?
we have ignored it, right? We have not
No, so
accounted
it's
it as per the accounting.
so when you say you have ignored it, so are you trying to say you have made a mistake?
Yes, sir.
Why?
Even though the values, like the very less part, like I
What do
mean,
you call
the
a mistake? So mistake is something which
like
wherein
the hard disk value is very minor, like
right,
the very less part
right,
in that, but
yes.
still it is an asset, right? Like we'll be able to get some cash flow with that, right? In our regular uh, days. I agree with you, sir. It is very less part, like it is very small part in that asset. I agree with you, but still it is an asset, right? Like we are getting some funds using that asset, right?
Hmm. So
Then
why do you think it's a
how
mistake?
can we able to? I mean, hard disk. We should value that. We should show in the balance sheet, right? Like either as a
So we are doing that.
PP, like
So let's suppose. So let's try to understand. Okay, I have understood your query.
okay, sir.
Now let's
Okay,
suppose
sir.
go purchase this. Now there were two ways to record it. So you are saying that I would have recorded 1000 as PPE and 4.99 lakhs as intangible asset. If I would do that, then of course I'll be able to explain that to the auditor. But forget the auditor. I think as a management, we need to do something which is right. So we are not talking about something which is right or wrong. Now, instead of recording these two components separately, what are we doing? We are recording this 5 lakhs as intangible asset. Now, if the auditor comes, or forget about the auditor. Now, why are we doing that? We are doing that because that's the requirement of the accounting standard. That's what the accounting standard requires you to follow. Okay, so if let's suppose you are doing something as per the accounting standard, will that be considered as a mistake? Answer is no. Okay, if let's suppose you are not following the requirements of the accounting standard, therein you will say that I have to worry about it. Why? Because tomorrow if somebody will question, what do I say? But this is not something which is a non-compliance of accounting standard. Understood my point?
Yes, sir. Got it.
Okay. Then I think Mathli
Yeah.
has a query. Yes, Mathli.
No, sir, I'm not understand this concept. Hard disk and software, which is comes under intangible asset or PP, as you explained. I'm not understood.
So did you not understand the breakup of this?
Yes, sir, this whole concept I'm not understood, sir.
Okay, no worries. So let's try to understand this once again. So this whole concept is all about an intangible asset, which is combined with a tangible asset. Okay, wherein you get this asset in a combined manner. So let's suppose if you go buy a software, how do you get that? You'll have some drive, you'll have some disk wherein the software is embedded. Now the question arises that what about that disk? That is a tangible portion. How do you record it as? And how do you record the software? So do you split it into two parts and then record it? Answer is yes. That's how you should be recording it. So you should record the tangible part separately as PP, intangible part separately as intangible asset. But if let's suppose any of the components therein is of negligible value, let's suppose if the value of the software and the hard disk in a combined manner which you have purchased is 5 lakhs. But you understand the value of hard disk is only 1000, negligible.
Sir,
And
there
you
is
will
some
ignore.
noise.
So
Hello.
Mathli, if you can just unmute yourself. Mathli, if you can just unmute yourself, right? Very good. So now, if you talk about this 1000, that's negligible. So that's where you will ignore the tangible portion. You will record the entire amount as intangible portion. Understood? That's the concept. Right?
Okay, sir.
Anyone else? Any more questions? No question? Sure? Everyone clear? Virashri is clear. What about others? Everyone clear? All right, great. So let's move further. Now we will talk about recognition and measurement requirements. So at the time of initial recognition, how do you measure intangible asset? It will always be measured at cost. Okay, you will always be measuring that at cost. Now, what are going to be the cost components? So it's exactly similar to what you have in case of PPE. Now, what are those cost components? So if you talk about PPE, we'll have the purchase cost, means the purchase price plus non-refundable taxes and duties you'll add. Any allowances, rebates, discounts you'll exclude. Okay, you'll deduct that. Any refundable taxes, duties you will exclude. That's exactly what you do in case of PP. In fact, PP is also something that you'll always measure at cost at the time of initial recognition. Okay, now another component. If you go to PPE, the other component happens to be directly attributable cost. So here again, if let's suppose you are generating an intangible asset, any directly attributable cost that you incur, so that will also be covered over here, attributed to the acquisition. We'll talk about, in fact, about this component in particular, we will discuss in more detail. Okay, but this is something I can say you can relate to what you discussed in case of PPE also. Now, let's talk about those intangible assets, particularly the ones which you acquire or which you internally generate. So you can have these two categories, right? So let's suppose you go acquire, say, a trademark. You go acquire a patent. So what will happen? You will check the criteria of intangible asset we discussed, and you will record it at cost. And generally therein, which cost component you will have to consider? Generally therein, this first cost component you will be checking. Generally, I'm not saying always, but generally in terms of the acquired intangible asset. Sometimes what may happen is an entity may be generating an intangible asset in-house. An entity is now developing an intangible asset. So now we will talk about those intangible assets which the entity is generating internally. And that's where this second component of the cost becomes, you can say, is something which becomes relevant. You'll have to consider that. We'll talk about it as to how do you do that. Okay. Now, internally generated intangible assets. So let's talk about these. Now, goodwill. Okay. Say if the goodwill is internally generated. Now, do you recognize that? Answer is no. Now, why don't you do that? See, the standard has prohibited that. Okay. That is prohibited by the standard. So you can just very simply remember this point, that if you come across goodwill which is internally generated, it should never be recognized. Now you may be thinking, but sir, what about goodwill that you see in the financial statements? Many a times you talk about goodwill and we do recognize it. So what do you mean by that? Is that an error? Answer is no. So that is acquired goodwill. Okay. So for example, when you talk about amalgamation, when you talk about business acquisition, that is where you find the goodwill. And what is the nature of that goodwill? That is acquired one. That is not the one which the entity generates internally. Understood the difference? Right? So we are not saying that the acquired one will not be recognized. No. It's not about the acquired one. Okay. Now, let's talk about internally generated intangible assets other than goodwill now. Okay. Now, goodwill is something which is a specific discussion wherein we have the clarity, you will not be recognizing it. Now we are discussing about those intangible assets, of course, other than goodwill, which the entity is generating internally. Now, can those be capitalized? That's the question. Means, can those be recognized by the entity? Answer is yes. So this prohibition is not there for all the internally generated intangible asset. It is only for goodwill. And that too for a reason we just discussed. Okay, so now comes the point. That how do you check? How do you decide about those internally generated intangible assets? And if, let's suppose, you were to capitalize them, what is the amount with which you will capitalize that. Okay, so two questions we'll have to discuss, right? So now, if an entity, let's suppose, has taken a project. Now one point I think as around this intangible asset, when you talk about those which are internally generated, that we are going to cover. Now, please make a note of this point, that if you look at AS26, the part that we are discussing right now happens to be the most important part. See, in this entire standard AS26, if you ask me what is the most important and what is the most challenging area, that is the one that we are now discussing. I'm not saying it's complex, so please don't worry. I'm not talking about anything which is complex. I'm saying if somebody has to pick up this entire standard and say that what is important, I would say this internally generated intangible asset. So this part of the accounting standard is the most important part, right? Now, let's suppose as an entity has taken up a project. So there is a project which the entity is now getting into. Now, it's a project the entity is planning to develop an intangible asset. So what is the nature? There is an intangible asset they are planning to develop. Now, it's very common for some industries wherein you see these projects throughout the year. For example, if you talk about pharma industry, if you talk about auto industry, every now and then they do some research and development. Have you heard about it? R&D? R&D? Have you heard about it? Anyone? Yes? Akila, Dhanlakshmi, they are saying yes. Kambira is saying yes. Very good. Now we are talking about that R&D only, actually. Okay. Now for some of the industries, as we discussed, it's a common process. So let's suppose pharma company is in the process of developing a new medicine. Okay. Similarly, if you talk about auto, they will be looking at the new models every now and then. Yes or no? So now when they begin a project, do they know what is it they are trying to achieve or whether they will be able to achieve that or not? Answer is no. They will not have that clarity. Of course, they will try to do that, but in terms of the success, they don't know whether they will succeed or not. Now, during the course of the project, they will incur some amount. So let's think about the amount which they will incur. One, they will deploy the manpower. Yes or no? So there's a team which will be working on this project. So that means they will incur manpower cost. Which is nothing but the salaries, wages, correct? They will be using the infrastructure. A building will be used. Premises will be used, which will be either on rent or if that is owned, so that will be getting depreciated. So that is also a cost. They may be using some equipments for the purposes of their project. Now those equipments could either be on rent, so it could be involving a rental cost, or they may be owned, so wherein the depreciation will happen, right? At times, they may have engaged consultants. So the costs of consultants. right? Similarly, various other costs may be incurred. Now, all of these costs are incurred in relation to what? This project. Okay, let us just name this project as project ABC. That's the name of the project. And let's suppose entity has a budget of rupees 50 crore. So that's the budget. We are not saying that this is going to be the exact amount. That's the budget of the project. 50 crore. So entity is saying that approximately that's the amount we'll have to spend. Now in this case, all of these costs that the entity will incur, that will be incurred over a period of time. Let's suppose it could be a period of 2 years, 6 months, 1 year, 3 years, we don't know. It may vary from the project to project. Okay, now the question arises. So what is the part of our discussion? So what are we trying to now understand? See, our objective is to find out that in respect of these costs which the entity will incur, what is going to be the accounting treatment? Now you may be thinking, sir, the nature of this cost is very simple. It's very clear that all of these costs always go to P&L. So what is there to think about it? Yeah, so the question could be there in your mind that why are we checking that? So if you talk about salary, it always goes to P&L. If you talk about rent, it always goes to P&L, right? Consultant costs will always go to P&L. So why are we analyzing it? So that's what we are trying to find out. That of course the nature of all of these costs you will get to see is something which always goes to P&L. But there's one more part to it that we are now trying to understand. See, this project which is started on this date and which is expected to be completed, let's suppose, on this date. So when you start the project, do you know whether there will be a success or not? Of course, you will expect, but do you know whether you will be successful in terms of this project? Tell me. Answer is no, right? So actually, what are you doing? You are starting with research. So you are doing a research, right? And there will be a stage. There will be a stage, or there may be a stage when your research gets over. Let's suppose somewhere over here, your research gets over. And that is when you will start with development. Okay, now how are these two relevant? And what is the difference between these two? Because all this while we were thinking about a term R&D, research and development, wherein we understand as if it's one and the same thing. Means research and development is nothing but a single term. Yes or no? So that's the understanding that we have had so far. But is that correct? Answer is no. Let's first of all try to understand as to why are we getting into this point. Means what is our objective? See, whenever you start the project, standard says there are two phases of the project. What is the first phase? The research phase. And what is the second phase? Development phase. Now, during the course of this project, if let's suppose you spend 50 crore, okay, now anything which you incur during the research phase, where will it go? it will always go to P&L. Okay, so any cost that you incur during the research phase goes to P&L, and any cost that you incur during the development phase, will it also go to P&L? Answer is no. You will capitalize that. Okay, so that will be capitalized. So during this phase, any cost you incur, you capitalize that. Understood? As to why are we discussing this? So what is our objective now? Now comes the most important part of this discussion. See, when it comes to the project, now we have understood that whether it is salary, rent, consultant, or any other cost, all of these costs, if you are in the research phase, you will charge it to P&L. If you are in the development phase, then you will not take it to P&L, you will capitalize that. Okay. So the accounting treatment is very simple. But there is one very complicated part. What is that? To draw a line. Okay. Now, in this entire discussion, the complicated part is to draw a line. Now, why do we draw the line? Means to decide, to assess when the research phase ends and when is the development phase starting. So this part happens to be the most challenging part when you look into it practically. So of course, theoretically, for your purposes, for the purposes of your questions, don't worry about it. But practically, if you go and check, if let's suppose any organization is doing this, it's something which is very challenging, which requires a detailed understanding of the project, which requires a lot of discussions with the management, with the technical team. Now, what is a research phase and what is development phase? Let's try to understand it. See, in a very simple manner, we can say research phase is the phase when the entity is looking for the solution. Means entity is doing some sort of experiments. They haven't got the formula as yet. Okay, means it's a trial and error method. They keep doing it, they keep rechecking it, but they don't have the clarity. Of course, whether they will be successful or not, this was not there since the beginning. But during this phase, the entity doesn't know what is going to be the formula. They are just trying to build the formula. There's no prototype in place. In a very simple manner, you can say experiments are going on. Okay. Now, what is development phase? Once the entity gets the formula, means they know how to develop. Now they've got the formula. So whether the development is done? No, it's not done. But they know how it will be done. Okay, they've got the clarity. That's when you will say development phase has started. Okay, that's when you will say development phase has started. So that's why you need to now decide in terms of a project, where does the research phase ends? And why is that important? Because any cost that you incur up to research phase, its accounting treatment is different as compared to any cost that you incur during the development phase. Understood? Yeah. So why are we doing that? Because the accounting treatment is different at two places. Now, what we will try to do is we'll just try to get into the details of this development phase and the research phase. We will try to understand this with some more points.
Sir,
So the standard is
sorry for
also,
distracting.
yes,
Could you please tell me the reason for posting research expense and P&L and development expense in capitalizing development expense? Is there any reason, sir, for doing so?
yes, we will discuss that. Please wait. Okay. Now,
Okay, sir. Thank you.
when you talk about research phase, as we discussed, what is that? See, you are doing some experiments. You're just trying to find the formula. Is that achieved yet? No, it's not. Now, what are the examples of the activities that you may have during the research phase? Now, please remember, conceptually, you need to understand this. Okay. What is the concept? Concept is that the formula is not there, experiments are going on. So if let's suppose you are doing some activities which are aimed at obtaining new knowledge, there is a search for, evaluation and final selection of applications of research findings or other knowledge. Search for alternatives for materials, devices, products, processes, systems or services. Formulation, design, evaluation, final selection of possible alternatives for new or improved materials, devices, products which the entity is planning to develop. So these are some of the examples. When it comes to the development phase, I would request everyone please stay on mute. Yeah, everyone please stay on mute. Okay, now let's talk about the development phase. See, development phase is the stage when the entity has actually got the formula. Now, standard says an intangible asset arising from development should be recognized. Means you will capitalize it if and only if an entity can demonstrate all of the following. Means the standard is also giving you the guidance in relation to the activities which you will have under the development phase. Okay, so it says when you have all of these criteria fulfilled, that's when you will say that yes, it's the development phase. Otherwise, you will keep calling it as the research phase. Now the question arises that, sir, is it possible that in a particular project only the research phase is going on, development phase has not yet come? Answer is yes, it's very much possible. It's not necessary that the entity will get into a development. There are a lot of projects which the entity will keep trying, but they do not succeed. So they continue to remain in research phase and they eventually shelve the project. Why? Because the success is not there. So they will remain under research phase. Now, what are those criterias which the entity needs to look into, basis which they will decide or basis which they will be able to conclude that the development phase is going on or has started? First, technical feasibility of completing the intangible asset so that it will be available for use or sale. Means technically entity should be there now. Means it's feasible for the entity to develop that. Its intention to complete and use or sell it means the entity should also intend to do that. Further, it should not be limited to the intent. Entity should also have the ability to use or sell the intangible asset. That intangible asset which is getting developed should be generating economic benefits from the entity. Entity should have adequate technical, financial, other resources to complete the development. So let's suppose entity has got the formula, but they do not have the resources to develop this. Right? See, all of these factors are important. Now the project should also be financially viable. Let's suppose entity is able to develop the product. Say they spend 50 crores and they develop the product, right? So technical feasibility is there. Yes. Do they develop the product? Yes, they have developed the product. But tomorrow when they use it or sell it, let's suppose the overall economic benefits from that product will be limited to 40 crore. So is that financially viable? Answer is no. Yes or no? That's not financially viable, right? So all of these factors will decide the development phase of the product. Now, what are the examples that you may get to see in respect of development phase? So let's look into these examples also. Design, construction, and testing of pre-production or pre-use prototypes and models. So basically you will have a prototype in place. Design of tools, jigs, molds, and dies involving new technology. So the design is in place. Okay. Now, as regards some of these examples, some of these phases, for your purposes, as we discussed, see, the question will give you the clarity in terms of the activities which are going on, basis which you will be able to identify whether it's the research phase or the development phase. Okay. And any expenditure that you incur during the research phase, what do? You will take it to P&L. Any expenditure that you have during the development phase, what do? You will take it to capitalization. Okay, so that's the accounting requirement you need to follow. Now, I think there is a question from one of you who is asking why there is a change in accounting. See, when you are not able to develop something, development means what? You are going to have an asset in place. Yes or no? If you are not able to develop something, let's suppose there's an entity, it's not able to develop something. So do they have any asset in place? Answer is no. See, without the asset, what do you do with that particular transaction? You will take it to P&L because asset is something which you will capitalize. If let's suppose you are spending an amount and you believe that this will be able to generate some future economic benefits, that's the criteria for you to record that as an asset. What is the meaning of capitalization? Capitalization means you are recording it as an asset. Yes or no? Otherwise, what do? You will take it to P&L. So when you are in the research phase, what should you do? That's the only thing you will do. That's in alignment with the accounting principles also. Okay, so that's why any expenditure that you incur during research phase, where do you take it? P&L. But any expenditure that you incur during the development phase, what do? You capitalize it. The capitalization which you are doing is nothing but an asset, and you are calling that asset as intangible asset, depending on the nature of that asset. Clear? Clear on this? Right? Everyone clear? Yes. Any questions, any doubts if you have? Akla is clear. Shridhar is clear. Anyone else? Any more questions? No? Okay, great. All right. So now I think what we can do is we can take a short break and we'll continue with this, okay, with some examples after the break. Right? IT, let's take a break. Huh? IT, can we continue? All right, so I think we can just move further. So let's look at this example now. Okay. An entity is developing a new production process. During the year X1, expenditure incurred was 10 lakhs, of which 9 lakhs was incurred before 1st December X1 and 1 lakh was incurred between 1st December X1 and 31st December X1. So we are looking at the calendar year. Okay. Entity is able to demonstrate that as at 1st December X1, production process met the criteria for recognition as intangible asset. The recoverable amount of know-how embodied in the process, including the future cash flows to complete the process before it is available for use, is estimated to be 5 lakhs. So in this case, what do you do? At the end of X1, you will say you have two stages, correct? See, 9 lakh which is spent up to 1st December X1. Can you tell me what will be the accounting treatment of that? Tell me quickly, over to you. What will be the accounting treatment for that? Expenditure that is incurred up to 1st December X1. What will be the accounting treatment for that? Over to you quickly. Yes, anyone who will answer this? What will be the accounting treatment for the expenditure incurred up to 1st December X1? Then Lakshmi says P&L. Why P&L? Akhila says capitalized. Why capitalized? Tell me the reason. When you say you will take it to P&L or you will capitalize, what is the basis? Great. Mathili says because it's in research phase. That's why what do? You will take it to P&L. Yes or no? So I think it is quite clearly evident. Why? Because on 1st December, entity is able to demonstrate the recognition criteria for intangible asset. Before that, it was not the case. So that's why out of this 10 lakhs, where do you take 9 lakh? 9 lakh goes to P&L. Right? Now the question arises as around this 1 lakh. Now this 1 lakh is incurred during the development phase. Yes or no? Yeah. So this 1 lakh is incurred during the development phase. Will you capitalize it? Answer is yes. You will have to capitalize that. Further, the question also talks about the recoverable amount. See, recoverable amount as a concept you will discuss under AS 28. As of now, I'll just touch upon this concept. You can say it's the market value in a very broad manner. Okay. So if let's suppose you have an asset, when you capitalize it, 1 lakh, and its market value is higher. So there is absolutely no problem in recognizing that. Right? So in this case, what do? During the year X1, 9 lakh goes to P&L. Why? Because it's an expenditure incurred during the research phase and 1 lakh gets capitalized. Clear on this part? Some of you who were saying this entire amount you capitalize, entire amount you take to P&L, now clear on this? Right? Okay. Moving further. During the year X2, now we are moving to the next year, X2. Now what do you have? During the year X2, company has incurred further expenditure of 20 lakhs. And the end of X2, recoverable amount of know-how embodied in the process, including the future cash outflows to complete the process before it is available for use, is estimated to be 19 lakhs. Okay. So at the end of the year X2, can you tell me what is the accounting treatment you will follow for this 20 lakhs? Quickly. What will be the accounting treatment for this 20 lakhs? Yes, anyone? Great. Amin says it will go to P&L. Can you tell me why? Anil says it will go to P&L, operating expenses. Can you tell me why? Quickly, huh? See, it's important for you to give the reason. Then Lakshmi says, because the estimated income is less. What do you mean by that? First of all, you tell me the answer, that are you taking it to P&L or not? And I mean, it's better you give your answer in one piece. Huh? So if you break it, it's very difficult to understand what was your answer and what is your reason. Okay, so first of all, you are giving the answer, then you are giving the reason separately. So how do we merge these two? Tell me. There are a lot of chats that come in between. Quickly, huh, everyone. Then Lakshmi says it goes to P&L. Why P&L? Who will answer? Quickly, who will answer this in a complete manner? What do you do? How do you do? And what is the reason? Amin says it goes to P&L because it is still in the development stage. So if you have something in the development stage, do you take it to P&L? Tell me, do you take it to P&L? Yes, quickly. Pooja says once the expenses are recognized, then it won't change. What does it mean? I couldn't understand this point. Anil says it's in process, so P&L. So what do you mean by it's in process? See, all of you, the answers you have been giving, those are all vague. So if let's suppose you write such answers in the exam, you will not get any marks. So you need to give the clarity. So when you say process, when you say developing, when you say these expenses will be charged off, either you are not giving the reason or you are giving the reasons which has got nothing to do with the concept we are discussing. Okay, so just apply the concept we have discussed and accordingly try to answer. It doesn't matter whether your answer is right or wrong. Okay, so don't worry about it. Important part is your application has to be correct. Okay, yes. Who will answer this now?
Sir, because it is the know-how is.
What do you mean by because? Before because you should give me the answer, isn't it? How do I need? How would I know what is the explanation you are giving?
Sir, it is going to.
So every time when you attempt in the examination also, first of all, what should you do? You should give the solution. Means what is your outcome? What is your assessment? And then you should start the explanation. Understood? Yes, please go ahead now.
Sir, it is going to P&L because the process know-how is embedded in the process actually.
What do you mean by know-how is embedded in the process?
Because the development stage already is crossed and the research stage already crossed and it is development stage already crossed. So the process.
How do you know development phase is already crossed?
So they said no, sir. In know-how embedded in the process, the whatever the experiment or research, they come to know-how process. They finally they understand the process and they estimated the cash flows also. So it is almost going to be commercial production for this.
Okay. So now just wait for a while. So actually you are talking about 3 stages. One is research phase. Second is development phase. And now you are talking about a third stage, which is coming after development phase. Is it? Is
Yes,
it?
sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Now, where do you generate this third phase from? Now, it's your invention. That's the problem. And that is what I've been telling you since beginning, that every time when we are covering a concept, please try to stay in the concept. Please try to apply what we have discussed. Don't try to think about something else which doesn't exist in the world. So what is it we have been discussing? That in relation to a project, there will always be two phases: research and development. Now let's think about it. In this case, what has happened? Let me just draw this for you. In this case, what has happened? So there is a project which the entity took up. So this is 31st December 2000 X1. This is 1st December 2000 X1. And this is 1st January 2000 X1. When is the project started? On this date. And we understand the project is going on, right? And on 1st December, entity has got the clarity. So that's why I think everyone said that this period is the research phase. Okay, which I think is very clear to everyone. Now, during this period, 9 lakhs was spent. And we discussed this 9 lakh goes to P&L. Very good. Now, after 1st of December, where are we? We are into development phase. Okay. So this is the development phase, wherein 1 lakh was spent. This is the development phase. Okay. Now, if you look at reporting year X1, you'll go year by year. Yes or no? That's how you do the accounting. So what do you do with this 1 lakh? You will capitalize it. Now, where is it written in the question, or where is it written in the standard that the project, once the year is completed, will come to an end? See, there is a project which the entity has taken up. What makes you say that on 31st December X1, this development phase has ended? Is it written anywhere in the question? Answer is no. Answer is no. So this development phase will continue. This will continue till the time you don't have the information, it has ended. Just because you had this 31st December coming as the closure of the reporting year. So that's why what did you do? Any expenditure up to 31st December, you had to record. You have recorded that. Does it mean you will put an end to the capitalization also? Put an end to the development phase also? No, you can't do that. So that's why when you move into this X2, your development phase is still going on. And any expenditure that you have in the development phase, what do you do with that? What do you do with that? You will always be capitalizing that. Correct? You will always be capitalizing that. Now, during year X2, expenditure incurred is 20 lakhs. Okay. Now, in respect of this 20 lakhs, what should be the accounting treatment? It should be capitalized. Yes or no? And now your capital portion will be what? 1 lakh was capitalized as an asset in the year X1. 20 lakhs is what you capitalize in X2. So your total amount becomes what? 21 lakhs. Because this is an asset which will appear in the balance sheet. Yeah. So if you capitalize it, what will happen? 20 for the year X2 1 lakh for the previous year, X1. So this cumulative amount becomes 21 lakhs. Everyone clear on this? Yeah? Everyone clear on this? Yeah? So please don't get confused that because the year is coming to an end, so that's why you will assume development should also be ended. If that is the case, any R&D project will always end as on the reporting year. But is that possible? Answer is no. What if an entity is starting a project, say on 25th March? You will say this project is over by 31st March. Tell me, will you say that? What if the entity is starting a project, say on 30th of March? You will say the project has come to a closure. Will that be the right understanding? Answer is no. Okay. So these are the assumptions. Where do you generate that? In your mind. Does it exist in the accounting standard? Answer is no. So that's why try to stay in the accounting standard. Don't try to create something beyond the accounting standard. Okay. That's the problem, and that's where the confusion lies. Now, in this question, there is a part related to the estimated value in relation to 19 lakhs. Some of this part. Okay. Please ignore this. So this part we will cover when we will get on to AS28 impairment of assets. As of now, what was important for us? Two expenditures. 10 lakhs for X1, 20 lakhs for X2. We have discussed the accounting treatment for both the years. And how did we decide that? By breaking the project into two phases very simply. Any portion which was there under research first, we took it to P&L. Any portion which is there in the development phase, we capitalize that. Clear? Clear on this?
Sir, 2 years accumulated expenses 20 lakh, right? Like X1 and X2.
How do you get 20 lakhs?
Like, could you please
I
tell
just
me the breakup
explained that.
of
I just
that 20
explained that.
lakh?
Again, I'm very surprised with your answer. How do you get 20 lakhs? Tell me quickly.
I mean, like, in the X1, we incurred 10 lakh, right?
In the X1, we incurred 10 lakhs, right? That's correct.
And in X2, we have incurred separately another 9 lakh.
9 lakh, where do you get that? Do you have the study material with you?
Yes, sir.
Please read that. What is the amount the company has incurred during X2? Please read that quickly for me. Quickly, huh?
Just a second.
Are you reading the question or
Sir,
not?
just a second.
Yeah, sure. See, every time one of the biggest problems which is observed in the exam is that the question is not read properly. Surinder has answered this for you. Surinder is saying 20 lakhs is incurred during X2. Okay. So that is where the problem lies. You are not reading the question properly.
Okay, sir, got it.
Got it? Now, what is the problem?
Yeah.
Have you identified the problem? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Clear
And
now.
this
Yeah.
is a very, very common mistake made in the exam. So you should make a note of this. In the exam, please try to give appropriate time to reading of the question. So whenever you see the question, whenever you see the question paper, what do? You jump onto the solution. You want to write the solution. You believe you without reading, you can answer that. Or with a very quick reading, you can answer that. You can do that, but with mistakes. Okay. Yeah. So it is a very, very important point, and it's good you have shared this, your thought process, because of which we have been able to discuss that. Right? Clear? Now, moving further.
Sir,
Yes. Yes. Please go
can
ahead.
you explain the second? Yes, sir. Can you explain the second part of the impairment loss of 2 lakhs to adjust the carrying amount? That I not understand.
Sorry, I couldn't understand your question.
In this example, the
Yes.
study material given, enterprise recognizes an impairment loss of 2 lakhs. Can you explain
Right.
that, sir?
So that's what I told you, that this impairment loss or this aspect related to impairment loss, please park it. When you will cover AS28, that is when you will get to know about this concept. Okay. So as of now, you may park it. We will cover it later on because
Can
it's a
you
different.
simply explain, sir, or
Simply explain what.
either that impairment loss?
So impairment loss, whenever you will have, you are required to take it to P&L. Okay.
Impairment loss will take it to P&L.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, sir.
Please understand, it's a concept we have not covered. Once you cover the
Okay.
concept, that is when you will get the clarity. Don't try to mug up the concept. Please wait for a while. You will cover this concept
Okay.
also. And that's when you
Okay,
will
sir.
get the understanding of this accounting treatment as well. Fine.
Okay, sir.
So
One more
maybe in
question.
the study material that you have, you can write a note, brief note, to be covered along with AS28. So that's how you will remember. So once you cover AS28, that is when you will come back to this and try to attempt this. Automatically you will get the answer. As of now, if I
Okay,
park
sir.
this concept, so what will happen? You will digress from AS28. There's no point
Yes,
in
sir.
that. Okay.
One more
Yes.
doubt, sir.
Yes.
Uh, in the question, including future cash outflows to complete the process before it is available for use, and is estimated to be 19 lakhs. That 19 lakhs we would not take it in answer, sir. Why?
See, that is what I'm telling you. What you are trying to do is you're just trying to pushing me to AS28 and I'm not trying to touch that. I'm saying
Okay,
please ignore that part. Please
that
ignore
19
that
lakhs
part.
also that 19 lakhs also comes under AS28, sir.
Yes, yes. So there is an
Okay.
aspect related to AS28 which has been included in this question. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So this entire discussion around the cash flows, around the part which is recoverable, or the terminology that you use, recoverable amount, all of these pertains to the impairment.
Yes, sir. Understood.
So
Okay, sir.
put it on hold for some time.
Okay, sir.
Sure? Clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right. Now, moving further. See, once again, what we will do is we'll just try to relate this concept to what we discussed under PPE. When we talk about intangible assets in terms of its accounting requirements, there are many similarities between intangible assets and PPE. One of the similarity that we talked about was initial recognition and measurement. PP is also initially measured at cost, intangible also at cost. When you look at the cost components of PP, those are similar to what we discussed under intangible assets. Now, when you talk about the subsequent measurement in a way, so PPE, you will depreciate, right? When it comes to the intangible assets, so those are in a way depreciated, but for intangible assets, you don't use the term depreciation. What is the term that you use? Amortization. Okay. So over here, a different terminology is used. That is what you call as amortization. Now, how do you calculate this amortization? As we just discussed, this concept is similar to what you have as depreciation under PP. You can just simply say the terminology is different. That's it. Otherwise, it's all same. So how do you calculate amortization of intangible assets? Just think about it. Just try to answer this. How will you calculate amortization? Can you give me the formula for this?
Sir, will simply spread over over a period of time.
Okay, but can you give me the formula for this? What will be the formula to calculate amortization? Just go back to depreciation. Think about the formula that you have for depreciation. Yes, who will answer this? Very good. Then Lakshmi says SLM or WDV. See, that's the method of depreciation that you have, which you will have under amortization as well. But I'm saying the formula. Very good. Hemin has given this. Hemin
Asset
says
minus depreciation.
asset minus.
Depreciation.
No, where do you bring the depreciation from?
The cost of the asset divided by life of the asset.
Very good. And that is exactly what Hemin has also given. Now, what is the formula for calculating depreciation? Cost. Okay. You have this cost from which you will deduct residual value divided by useful life. Yes or no? That's the formula. So the same formula you have for amortization also. Cost of the intangible asset that you'll have, from which any residual value you'll deduct, and this you'll divide by the useful life, right? In this case, once again, similar to depreciation, you have two variables now. What are those two variables? Residual value and useful life. Both of them are what? Accounting estimates. So these are accounting estimates that you have. Okay. Now, what is the meaning and what is the relevance? Why are we talking about it? See, the accounting estimates are required to be reassessed. We understand if there is an estimate, it is not 100% correct. It is an approximation. Means this approximation is done on the basis of some assumptions. Some assumptions have been considered by the entity. And those assumptions may change in future. Yes or no? If the assumptions change, what will happen? These estimates may also change. So that's why what do you do? At every reporting date, entity is required to reassess these estimates. If there is any change in the accounting estimates, let's suppose change in the useful life, change in residual value, can you tell me how do you record it? Under PPE, you would have covered that. Can you tell me how do you record it? Quickly. If let's suppose there's a change in accounting estimate, how do you record it? Over to you. Tell me quickly.
Sir, we'll simply review hello. We'll simply revalue the amount like depreciation if it is PP, and now we'll simply as of as on the year of change of accounting estimate, we'll simply review that accounting estimate and we'll revise and revalue the amortization expense.
No, that is what I have only explained. My point is, how will you do that? You are saying we will do that. I know. That's what I have also explained. How will you do that? What is the basis? Yes, who will answer this quickly? If let's suppose there is a change in accounting estimate, how do you record it? What is the basis that you are required to follow? Tell me quickly. How do you record it? If there is a change in accounting estimate, I think you have forgotten. You are required to record it prospectively. Yes or no? Yeah? You are required to
Yes, sir.
record it prospectively. That's the answer.
Will not record retrospectively. Okay, sir. Got it.
Okay. Hemin says it would No, I think maybe you have answered something related to a previous question, which has just been received now. Anyways, so now amortization is what? Again, a similar methodology that you have for PP. So now for intangible assets, it's a different methodology. Sorry, it's a different term. Now, in case of intangible assets, generally residual value is found to be nil. Generally, I'm saying. I'm not saying it's a rule. Generally, residual value will be nil. So that's why generally, what do you have? Cost divided by useful life. Why? Because if the residual value will be nil, how do you compute it? Cost divided by useful life in most of the cases. Now, useful life is what? Useful life is an estimate by the management, now which will be dependent on various factors, maybe dependent on the contract, maybe dependent on the expectation of the management. So that's how useful life is required to be determined. And this is also required to be reassessed. Okay, so that's how you calculate the amortization. So we will get on to this calculation of amortization and some of these things slightly later. As of now, what we can do is we can just look at some examples to get some more clarity around some of these things that we have just discussed. Okay, so let's look at these small examples. An entity has purchased an exclusive right to generate hydroelectric power for 60 years. Okay, so it's a right which the entity has purchased. Cost of generating hydroelectric power are much lower than cost of obtaining the power. It is expected that the geographical area surrounding the power station will demand a significant amount of power from the power station for at least 60 years. In this case, if you talk about this right to generate hydroelectric power, it's an intangible asset. Yes or no? It's an intangible asset. Now the question arises, what should be the useful life of this intangible asset and why? See, please try to give me the reason properly. Yeah? Okay, so that is what I'm looking at. So what should be the useful life of this intangible asset? Over to you. Tell me quickly. What should be the useful life of this intangible asset and why? Over to you. What should be the useful life of this intangible asset? Yeah, everyone, tell me. What should be the useful life? Yes, anyone, any thoughts? Is it so difficult? Is it difficult for you to determine the useful life? Yes. In this case, what should be the useful life? Okay, finally I've got the answer from Dhanlakshmi and Akila. They are saying 60 years. Dhanlakshmi says because it can generate the power for next 60 years. I think it's very simple. If you look at this right, this intangible asset, what is the assessment of the entity? Entity thinks, entity believes that the power from this power station is expected to be generated, that's expected to be viable for at least 60 years. So that's why what should the entity do? Entity should consider a life of 60 years for this right, for this intangible asset. Yes or no? Yeah. Next. Example number B. An entity has purchased exclusive right to operate a toll motorway for 30 years. There is no plan to construct alternative routes in the area served by the motorway. It is expected that this motorway will be in use for at least 30 years. Okay. The entity amortizes the right to operate the motorway over 30 years. Why? Because that's the expectation of the entity. So entity is expecting what? That they will be using this motorway for 30 years. So that's why what should be the expected useful life? 30 years. Yes or no? 30 years. So that's why what do they do? Entity will amortize this over a period of 30 years. Understood? Yeah? Clear on this? Entity will amortize this over a period of 30 years. Clear? Another example. Company X purchased a copyright to produce a safety equipment for sale in the market. Okay, so there is a copyright. Rights have been obtained for 10 years. Hence, the company is amortizing the intangible asset over 10 years. Obviously, because if let's suppose the right is obtained for 10 years, what is the useful life they will consider? 10 years, right? They will consider a useful life of 10 years, correct? Now, in this case, if let's suppose, just give me a minute. Let me just go to the working file. Now, sorry, we can just go back to the document. Now, if let's suppose after 7 years, due to change in the environmental law, safety equipments produced out of new technology are only considered valid. In this case, the company need to write off the balance amount in the year of implementation of law. So what do you mean by that? The life has got changed. Yes or no? In this case, the life has changed. So if the life has got changed, what do? You will have to apply that prospectively. Correct? Now, in this case, yes, I think somebody has a query. Yes, any questions, any doubts from you?
Sir, will simply nullify that rest of a part, right?
What do you
Because
mean
we
by
have to do in a
nullify? What is the meaning of nullify?
Like earlier we have estimated life is 10 years, right?
Right.
So it now it has changed to
Now it has,
like
let's
after
suppose, got
7 years.
reduced. Let's suppose
Yeah,
it's
reduced.
reduced. Let's suppose after
So
7 years, you find the life is not there. Okay, the life is
yeah,
over. Okay, so now what
yeah.
do? The balance amount of the asset that you have, you'll have to immediately amortize that.
Okay, whatever balance we have, we'll simply amortize over 3 years.
Not 3 years. You will do that over 3 years if the life is 10 years.
3. Okay, fine.
Means the remaining life is 3. When the remaining life is 0, what do? If the remaining life is 0, what do? You will charge it off.
Okay, sir, fine.
Understood? If let's suppose remaining life is 1 year, you will charge it over 1 year. If the remaining life is, let's suppose, 2 years, you will charge it over 2 years. That's what you do.
Okay, sir.
Okay, that's what you call as prospective accounting also. Correct?
Yeah, sir. Yeah, sir, got it. Thank you.
Sure. Anyone else? Any more questions? Yes? Any more questions on this? Vibin is clear. Anyone? Any questions? Any doubts if you have on this? Any questions? No? Sure? Clear? Everyone clear? Okay, now quickly. See, as we understand, this amortization is nothing but a different terminology that you are using for intangible assets. Okay. In case of PP, you call it as depreciation. In case of intangible asset, you will call it as amortization. So here again, you have those methods of depreciation. Straight line, WDV, UOP, all those are similar. Residual value, I think we have talked about it. This is again an accounting estimate. And when you talk about residual value, when you talk about useful life, when you talk about methods of depreciation, all of these are required to be reassessed. Why? Because all of them are what? All of them are nothing but the accounting estimates. Okay. Now, let's move on to one more part. That is about derecognition. Now this again is similar to what you have under PP. If let's suppose an intangible asset is disposed of, or let's suppose no future benefits are expected out of that. So what do? You will derecognize it. You will derecognize it. So you'll sell it off. You get a gain or a loss. See, generally in case of an intangible asset, you will have a loss. But what if there is a gain? So that gain or loss on sale, where do you take it? It goes to P&L. It goes to P&L. Exactly similar to what you have under PPE. Right? Now what we will do is, we will look at some examples. As around some of the concepts we have covered, we will look at some examples, and my request to all of you. So when you look at these questions, just try to attempt on your own first of all, without looking at the solution, of course. Okay, and just try to share those responses with as much details as possible. And if you want, you can just discuss that. Maybe we can discuss that. You can just speak and explain, right? Instead of writing it, whichever way you feel comfortable. This is all for your practice. So let's look at this question 1. ABC Limited developed know-how by incurring an expenditure of 20 lakhs. Know-how was used by the company from 1st April X1. Okay. The useful life of the asset is 10 years from the year of commencement of its use. So there's a life given. Company has not amortized the asset till 31st March X8 for some reason, we don't know. You are required to pass the journal entry to give effect the value of know-how as per AS 26 for the year ended 31st March X8. Understood? Yeah, over to you. What do you think will be the accounting entry or entries? Over to you.
Sir, amortization, we have to make it every year now. So that is a compulsory one. We cannot skip it.
Okay. So what do you mean by that? Give the solution. So the question is not asking you that amortization is mandatory or not mandatory. Question is asking you to give the journal entry that you will pass during the year ended 31st March X8. So that's the question.
Sir, like as the life is 10 years,
right?
But they failed to amortize till 31st March X8, right? So they can amortize rest of a part of a life.
So that is again the concept you are telling me. I want the exact answer to the question. So what is the requirement of the question? So let's suppose you are in the exam. Okay, so I've received two responses. So one is saying amortization is compulsory. If you write that in the exam, you don't get marks. And if you explain the concept, which you just explained, maybe you will get some marks, you will not get full marks. What is the requirement of the question? Please understand the requirement of the question, and that is what I want from you. The way you will want to answer this in the exam. Understood? Tell me, who will answer this? Quickly, everyone.
So we are going to amortize for the 7 years. That is from 1st April 2001 to
Okay.
31st 2008. It comes 7 years, sir. So we're going to
Okay.
amortize that one.
Okay.
Like 20 lakh, we have to divide it by useful life is 10.
Right.
So we're going to take it that way.
Right. So that is the approach. What is your answer? If let's suppose you are clear on the approach, what is the problem in getting onto the final answer? Tell me quickly, everyone.
The depreciation debit 16 lakhs to asset 16 lakhs.
Do you depreciate intangible asset?
No, amortization, sorry.
So that is the mistake once again. So can you now understand the mistakes you are going to make in the exam? There are 4 ways you have tried to answer this. All of those answers are either incorrect or partly correct. Okay, but it's such a simple question. Yeah, so can you now understand some of the mistakes you make, basis which you don't get the full marks? Can you understand that now? Yeah. Yes, tell me, who will give me the final answer and the appropriate answer?
Yes, sir. The expenditure is 20 lakhs. It is given for a whole 10 years. So
Right.
we will, so, but the amortized asset is only 7 years only. So we will, how to say, we will reduce that amount or reconvert to 7 years. So 20 lakhs into 7 years divided by 10 years. So we will get the 7 years expenditure amount. So that amount will be going to that journal entry.
And what is the journal entry that is again missing? That is exactly the requirement of the question. So will you write that this is the concept and now the examiner should himself think about the journal entry and give you full marks? Will you
No, sir.
expect that from the
The journal
examiner?
entry. No, sir. The journal entry is amortization is an expense, so it will
Right.
be debited. Then know-how is an asset, so it will need to reduce. So we will credit that.
Okay.
Then mm, how profit and loss that I don't know, sir.
Sir,
So I think Hemin has shared this accounting entry. Hemin is saying amortization debit 2 lakh, asset credit 2 lakh. Okay. P&L debit 14 lakh, asset credit 14 lakh. So again, I'm not sure in terms of the accounting entries. Hemin, would you like to explain this? What have you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please go ahead.
So what I would say just disregard the first one because the first one which I passed like amortization debit to asset credit that was just for particularly I was saying for 2028 or 2018
Right.
to X18. But now the next entry which I'm saying P&L debit which is like goes into amortization debit 14 lakh to asset credit 14 lakh. That means that the from the day like the 2021 till 2018 all
Right.
together the depreciation would be 14 lakh
14 lakh. Okay.
which would be like if we take 20 lakh divided by 10 which is 2 lakh into the 7 years.
Right.
That's
All right.
what I basically meant because it just says that provide the journal entry.
Yeah, sure. Very good. Anyone else?
Sir, I just wanted to add it. Like, whatever the amount amortization we got is 14 lakh.
Right,
And that is 6 years is of previous one and 1 year is of
right.
current one. So the
Okay,
1 year amount I'm going to put it in the amortization, and
okay.
the 6 years which is been not recorded,
Hmm.
I cannot put it in amortization of current year. So what I will do, I put it in the profit and loss.
In
And
the profit.
totally in the intangible asset, I will minus 14 lakh.
Okay.
So profit and loss debit, I will make 12 lakh.
Hmm.
Amortization, I will make it 2 lakh debit. That is also an expense, means it's a loss. To
Hmm.
intangible asset, we are going to make it 14 lakh, where we are going to deduct it from 14 lakh, means from the asset.
All right. So let's look at this, right? Now, in this case, up to 31st March exit, the amount of amortization should have been 14 lakhs. Yes or no? Now, in this case, a mistake has been made by the company. Up to which date? 31st March X7. What is the mistake? No amortization was charged. Yes or no? But shall we say that such a mistake has also been made during the reporting year ended 31st March exit? No. Why? Because this reporting year is continuing. This has been on. Okay. Now, in this case, what is the accounting entry you will pass? Amortization is something which always goes to P&L. Yes or no? So what do? You will say amortization debit for the first 6 years. What is that amount? 12 lakhs. Then amortization debit 2 lakhs. For which year? For the reporting year ended 31st March exit. To intangible asset that has to get reduced by 14 lakhs. But in this case, when you talk about these two amortizations of 12 or 2, both of them go to P&L. Both of them will go to P&L. Why? Because this much amount needs to be charged to P&L. But there was a problem. What was the problem? This amortization of the first 6 years is a mistake which the company has made. So that's why what will the company do? Company will call it as a prior period item. Yeah. So any mistake, any errors are called as prior period item. So it's a prior period expense. That's what the company will have to sort of classify as well as give a disclosure about, because it's a mistake they have made. But does it mean that 6 years goes to P&L, seventh year doesn't go to P&L? No. Please try to understand this entire amount of 14 lakh has to go to P&L. This entire amount of 14 lakh has to get reduced from intangible asset. But you need to differentiate between this 14 lakh. This 2 lakhs pertaining to the current year is absolutely fine. There is no error in this. This 12 lakh is an error. But how do you differentiate? By bringing this terminology prior period item. Everyone clear? Clear on this? Yeah. So that's how you are required to do this. Okay.
Sir, I have one query. Like,
Yes.
it, it is it has to be impacted prospectively, right?
What do you mean by
But we are
prospectively?
reducing, like,
See, it's not a change in
as per
estimate.
age
Change
26.
in estimate is something you do prospectively. It's not a change in estimate. It's an error.
Okay, fine. Then
Errors
it's
you will
fine. Okay, fine.
record. No, why do you say then it's fine? You
Accept.
need to understand the concept every time. I'm not saying let's take it this way. You need to understand. This is the only way.
Okay.
Clear? All right. So with this, we are through, but there is one point. See, in the next session, we will continue with this topic. We'll practice some more questions and we'll also pick up AS28 impairment. So that's why it's very important that you revise it, because only then you will be able to appreciate and attempt the questions around it. Right? Clear? Yeah. So do make sure that you revise this. Okay. So we are closing this session now. Thanks everyone. And let's continue with this in the next session. IT, we can close this now.